Man, I gotta tell you what, this camera overheating thing has taken over YouTube and Threads, and people are really questioning kind of like their choices of the type of camera that they've picked. And since we are in the summer months now, I think it's very important to really understand why these little hybrid mirrorless cameras overheat and kind of like what can be done about the overheating and kind of like how to protect yourself. So I am definitely no stranger to overheating. I have my primary shooter is the Fujifilm X-H2S, and although it has been very, very good in terms of overheating, and by the way, guys, I live in Miami, Florida, and right now it's like 90 degrees and it feels like 110. So in the sunlight, when you're outside with no shade, it feels way hotter than that. And when you're doing this professionally, like on a set and you're getting paid for this, the last thing that you want is your camera overheating on you and you just, are forced to turn it off and like wait for a bit, for it to work again. So the whole controversy about this overheating thing was really started by the Panasonic S1 Mark II and the S1 R Mark II, and some people that own these cameras are just reporting that they have overheating issues. And yes, some of these YouTubers and reviewers, they live in very hot climates and, they're using these cameras, how they are supposed to be used, right? They're not in a office where it's like 70, 75 degrees and it's very controlled. There's, it's just different. They're actually using these cameras how they're intended to be used. And then you have other people that might live, far up north, like in Canada, where it's, cold for the most part of the year, and they're shooting and they're like, well, I don't have this issue with my camera. Well, it's your climate, right? You're in a very different environment, like compared to me, where I'm in, Miami, and I need something that has, a built-in fan or a way for me to attach a fan where I can like mitigate this risk and not have to worry about, oh, should I be standing in the shade right now? Or, oh, should I be, putting an ice pack on my camera? Or, oh, should I, have my camera off while I'm not using it? These are things that I just really do not want to, worry about. And as professionals, when you get paid to do this is something that you do not want to worry about. You just want to turn the camera on. You want to, follow, the kind of plan for the day, and you want to, start shooting. So as I mentioned previously, I have, my X-H2S, and I did buy the little fan attachment on the back. Now, the fan attachment for me is just, honestly, it has been a game changer for me using this camera in a hot environment like this, because it really gives me peace of mind. Without the fan, I really, really worry about whether my camera is going to overheat or not, especially when I'm in direct sunlight. I'm outside, shooting these videos. I really, really worry if the camera is going to overheat. Now, the nice thing about this little fan attachment is that I don't always have to use it. It's on when I need it, but when I'm in an environment like I'm right now, talking head, I don't really have to worry about the fan attachment. Right now it's like 75 degrees inside of my apartment. I don't have to worry about that. And I have also full control of the fan, and everything just is kind of powered by the camera. I don't have to have, all these different cables and a way to power this fan. So it's I think a smart way for Fujifilm to kind of give you that extra assurance that the camera is not going to overheat. So for me, the first time it overheated was last year. I was outside and I was shooting a horse race, and I had my Ninja attached to the camera. I had, my gimbal attached to the camera, so I was drawing power from the gimbal and also recording onto the Ninja 5, and I was also shooting in, H.265, so it was a really compressed codec. And with all of these things, it took like 4 hours for the X-H2S to overheat. And yes, I did have the fan attached, but it was just way too much stress on the camera. So I would say that this particular situation was kind of like a very unique one, where I really normally don't shoot with this type of, setup. Normally it's just, my camera with the Atomos Ninja attached. I really rarely shoot with, a gimbal attached. So I would say that was a very rare occurrence, because it hasn't happened since. It only happened that one time with the fan attached, and since then I've never had this overheating issue with my X-H2S. So the other thing that you want to be very mindful of is the type of memory card that you're shooting to. So if you have a memory card that is not really designed for speed, like a V60 or V90 SD card especially, then you're going to experience some overheating, because the camera is working a lot harder to write to that memory card that is, slow to begin with. Now, most of my work happens on a CF Express Type B card, and I use Angelbird cards, and they're not the fastest ones. They're like 1750 megabytes a second, but they have been working extremely well for me. And I've also just recently started shooting ProRes, And I never really used to shoot ProRes only because it just takes up so much space. And even with a 1 terabyte drive, I get like, I don't know, an hour and a half worth of shoot time. So I never really used ProRes, but ProRes is really nice because it's really not that compressed like H.265. So the processor in the camera is not working as hard to process these images and compress them as if it's, as when you're shooting with ProRes where it's, really uncompressed. So then, as you know, the other camera that I shoot with is the FX3. And man, the FX3 has been incredible in all sorts of environments. Now, the last professional gig that I did, I shot everything in like 4K 60. And it was very particular. That's why I shot in 4K 60. But man, it was very hot outside, but the camera did not feel hot. It didn't feel hot at all, which is it's like very unusual to kind of feel that in a little mirrorless body. But that's what the FX3 is. It's, a lot more expensive than a ZVE1, which, has the same sensor. But because of that little fan attachment and obviously all the other things that the FX3 comes with over the ZVE1, this is why it costs 2 times more. Now, I know that the FX3 really recently, since the launch of the new Panasonic cameras, has been getting some like negative feedback because, people are saying this is an old camera. It's not, it doesn't have open gate. It doesn't have all these like crazy features like what the Panasonics have, but the camera is reliable. I can take it anywhere. And I don't have to worry about overheating. You have these little mirrorless bodies that some of them don't even have fans. Like the R5 Mark II doesn't even have a fan. You have to buy a fan attachment and attach it to the bottom, which is like, kind of crazy to me. So, even like big cameras, professional bodies like the Z8, no, fan built in. And even though it's like bulky and big, it still is prone to, overheating. And I talk to people that have a Z8 and they're telling me, yeah, like right now, especially in the summertime, I'm outside and I'm, taking photos and this thing will overheat on me. So guys, like I'm telling you what, like summertime heat right now in the United States and all over the world is really kind of exposing these cameras that, everybody's saying, oh my God, what an amazing camera. It's never overheated on me. Well, now in the summertime, it might overheat on you. And guys, don't get me wrong. I don't want to talk bad about these Panasonic cameras because, on paper, and just overall the reviews, man, the camera is incredible. But, just even having a slight chance of overheating is a big deal. I mean, I don't know about you, but it is a big deal. If you're doing it as like a hobby, if you videography and photography, if you're doing it as a hobby, man, totally fine. Don't worry about overheating. Don't worry about any of that stuff. But when you're doing it professionally and you're on set and you have to get a particular scene and you only have one chance, man, then, like you got to think about this. Now, I have had these type of experiences before where it was like a one take shot. So the camera had to be perfect. And of course, I was shooting with a A6400 back in the day and the camera overheated on me. I was in a warehouse, I was shooting and it was all fine and everything. And it just started giving me the warnings, right? And there's like literally nothing that I could have done at the time. There was no fans at the time and there was nothing, no attachments I could do. And it just died on me. So what I had to do is, instead of risking losing all the footage, I just, stopped recording. And of course I missed a big portion of what I was shooting. And there was no retakes. And the client was super upset. But this is kind of like what I had to deal with at the time. Now, in 2025, we do have some options to kind of like mitigate these risks. But they're not perfect, right? You have to attach little fans in the back of your camera if you can do that. Like with the Z8, you can't even attach a fan to the back of it because of how the screen tilts out. So you have, options like with your Lanzi where what you're looking at actually has a battery built into it and it magnetically attaches to the fan and now it just runs by itself. It doesn't really actually take any juice from your camera or any external battery sources. It's all one self-contained unit. And what's nice about this little cooler is that it's actually an actual cooler. It's not a heat sink like what the Fujifilm is doing with their version. It's actually a real cooler. And when you touch the back of it, it feels like a little mini fridge. But like, this is, again, another thing that you kind of have to carry with you. So it does work well. I've used it on my XH2, and it works extremely well. 90-degree weather. But again, be mindful. This is something that you have to bring with you at all times. I mean, no different than with the Fujifilm little fan, except the fan, you have little options and things that you can do inside the camera body to kind of control the fan a little bit better, and it's just a little more sleek because it how it attaches to the camera. So I do think that what Fuji is doing is definitely it's just a much better option, I think. But you still have the option to buy external thing to attach to your camera. So in conclusion, I just want to say it is very, very important for you to understand the type of, work that you do, right? If you're doing a lot of long takes, if you're in a hot environment, if there's really no tolerance for risk, you got to think about this. You got to think about heat management. This is why like an FX6 is so large. Yes, it's got all the inputs and everything, but it also has a good heat management system. That's why, the Komodo is like box shaped and it's like much larger than, mirrorless camera. It's got very good heat management. So these cinema style bodies, this is like a huge priority, and that's why these cameras are so large. And I got to say this right now. This is why the FX3 is so popular. It has been so popular for the past 4 years is because it's very reliable. You can take it anywhere and it's going to perform. So in my honest opinion, I think that the fact that the camera is guaranteed to not overheat, to me is a much bigger deal than having open gate and ProRes RAW internal and all these speeds and fast things. It is way more important. Like, what's the use of having all these features if your camera is going to overheat when you're in the sun? So guys, that is it for me today. I really want to hear your opinion on this subject because right now, because we're in summer, it is a very, very big deal. So I want to know if you've experienced overheating. Where do you guys live where, you're not experiencing any overheating? Because I see it all the time with different cameras because we are in the South. Luckily for me, I kind of, have my little things where I kind of mitigate this risk. So yeah, let me know what you feel about this topic. Is it overblown? Is the S1 Mark II amazing and it just does not overheat? Or are just, people talking, nonsense here on YouTube? Let me know what you think. And yeah, I will see you on the next one.